All right, so we're diving into the world of, well, a pretty impressive palm, wouldn't you say? The Bismarck palm.
It is a giant, and you've certainly gathered quite the collection of info on them. Articles, websites, even an encyclopedia entry.
Well, you gotta love a good deep dive. Someone clearly did their homework on this one. Seems like we're ready to explore everything Bismarckia nobilis, from its home in Madagascar to its growing popularity in gardens all around the world.
It's quite the journey when you think about it. From those rugged Malagasy landscapes to gardens all over the globe, it's a testament to how much these ancient towering plants really capture the imagination, won't you say?
Absolutely. And going through these sources, I have to say, the sheer scale of this palm is the first thing that struck me. 40-inch thick trunks, leaves stretching 10 feet wide. It's hard to even picture something that massive.
Oh, they're giants in their native habitat, easily reaching over 70 feet tall. I mean, try to imagine a tree taller than a double-decker bus, even when they're cultivated and might not hit those dizzying heights. A 40-foot Bismarck is still, well, it's quite a sight.
Yeah, that's not your average backyard palm tree. And the leaves, those photos you send over are incredible. That signature silvery blue color is mesmerizing.
It's not just a trick of the light either. That unique color actually comes from a protective, waxy coating that's on the leaves. And, there's actually a green variety of the Bismarck palm too, although it's less common to see it cultivated and it's a bit more sensitive to the cold.
Speaking of tough, everything I read just kept emphasizing how incredibly resilient these palms are. Droughts, heat waves, even light frost, they handle it all. One website, monacondenaturencyclopedia.com, even say Bismarck palms are one of the few trees in Madagascar that can withstand those intense periodic fires they have. What's the secret to their survival?
It's a combination of things, really. For one, their structure. The crown of leaves sits way up high, far from any flames on the ground. But maybe even more important is that deep, strong root system. In fact, there's a quote that pops up in a few of these articles: to dig a Bismarckia is nearly to kill it. Strong words.
That's a pretty intense warning. What is it about transplanting them that's so difficult?
Bismarcks, they have what's called a taproot system. So instead of spreading out with lots of fine, delicate roots, they send down a single, really dominant root that anchors them deep in the ground. And it's this taproot that lets them reach water and nutrients deep down, which is, well, it's crucial in those arid Malagasy landscapes.
So if you try to dig one up, you risk damaging that lifeline.
Exactly. Damaging the taproot when you're transplanting it is, well, it's like cutting off a main artery. It really compromises its ability to bounce back and thrive. So, moving a mature Bismarck palm, it's not a simple task. You often need specialized equipment and real expertise to avoid hurting that vital taproot.
So, lesson learned. Picking the right spot right from the start is essential. It's like buying real estate location, location, location.
Couldn't agree more. But beyond just being a visually striking plant, the Bismarck palm has a really rich history of practical use in its native Madagascar.
Oh, yeah. So it's more than just a pretty face. Tell me more about how it's been used throughout history.
Well, even the local names for the Bismarck, names like Satra, Satrana, Satrapatsi, these are words that, well, they come from the indigenous language of Madagascar, and they really highlight its significance. The trunks are incredibly strong, super durable, making them perfect for construction. Can you imagine building homes out of palm wood? Then you've got the leaves, which are used for everything from roofing to weaving these really intricate baskets.
Wow, it really is a multi-purpose building material. What about as food? Any culinary uses for the Bismarck palm?
You might be surprised to know, but yes. The pith, which is that starchy core inside the trunk, it can be extracted and made into a type of sago. It's a gluten-free starch, kind of similar to tapioca. And while it's not a primary food source or anything, it just goes to show how versatile the Bismarck palm is and how intertwined it is with the lives of the people of Madagascar.
That's fascinating. This one single species provides so many different resources. It's incredible. It speaks to the ingenuity and the resourcefulness that comes from being really connected to the natural world, don't you think?
Definitely. It reminds us that nature often provides for us in ways that, well, we might not even realize until we take a closer look.
And speaking of looking closer, one detail that caught my eye in these materials is well, the Bismarck's unusual name. Our stately palm has a connection to a rather powerful figure in history, doesn't it?
It's true. The Bismarck palm is named after none other than Otto von Bismarck, the very first chancellor of the German Empire. Not every day you come across a plant named after a politician, is it?
Talk about a legacy. And I'm guessing that nobilis, in its scientific name Bismarckia nobilis, means noble in Latin, right? So it's a palm with a name that just screams strength, grandeur, and maybe even a bit of historical intrigue.
It really does fit, doesn't it? But, beyond its impressive size and those historical ties, there's a whole other level of fascinating details hidden within the Bismarck palm's, well, its structure. For example, have you ever noticed those delicate threads that run between the segments of the leaves?
Now that you mention it, yes, you can see them in the photos. They look almost like tiny stitches holding those leaf segments together. What are they exactly?
They're called interfold filaments, and they actually play a crucial, though often overlooked, role in the Bismarck's resilience. See, those filaments, they're made from this incredibly tough, fibrous material. They're like miniature support beams, reinforcing the leaves and helping them stand up to strong winds and heavy rain.
Wow, so even the smallest details have a purpose. It makes you appreciate the intricate design of nature, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's like a reminder that form and function are often inseparable in nature, where even the tiniest features can serve a vital role. It really does. And while we're talking about resilience, there's something else about the Bismarck that I find pretty interesting. That reddish or purplish color we talked about, the one that sometimes pops up on like the younger Bismarck palms.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Like a temporary blush on those young leaves. We talked about it maybe protecting them from the sun, but I'd love to know more. What actually causes that color change?
Well, scientists think it has something to do with a pigment called anthocyanin. You'll see it in other plants too. It's what makes leaves change color in the fall. It's believed that in the Bismarck, anthocyanin basically acts like a natural sunscreen, protecting those young leaves from strong sunlight until they can develop tougher, well, more permanent defenses.
So it's like a temporary shield, helping them through that delicate early stage of growth. It's pretty remarkable how plants have developed these strategies to make it in these tough environments, isn't it?
Absolutely. And thinking about the Bismarck's journey from Madagascar to gardens around the world, it reminds me that even scientific discovery has its share of, well, twists and turns.
Oh, I'm all ears. How did the Bismarck come to be known to science?
Well, it was first formally described back in 1881 by two German botanists, Friedrich Hermann Gustav Hildebrandt and Hermann Wendland. But here's the thing. When Madagascar was colonized by the French, there was this push to downplay the palm's connection to Germany.
You're kidding. So even botanical discoveries weren't safe from political influence. Or were they going to rename it?
For a short time, they tried to classify it as a Madamia, which is a different genus of palm entirely. But in the end, the name Bismarckia stuck.
Well, I guess you could say the Bismarck's name was as resilient as the palm itself. It reminds you that even scientific classifications have these hidden stories, these little bits of intrigue.
Exactly. And speaking of stories, the Bismarck palm has a pretty fascinating one when it comes to its ecological role. We've talked about its importance to people, but it's just as important to the ecosystem as a whole.
That makes sense. Something that big and that long-lived, it has to have a pretty significant impact on its surroundings. What sort of relationships does the Bismarck palm have with other organisms in its environment?
Well, for one, that massive canopy acts like a giant umbrella, providing shade and shelter for a whole range of creatures. Imagine trying to escape that scorching Malagasy sun. You'd be looking for the shade under those enormous leaves, too. You'd find insects, birds, reptiles, even small mammals, all taking advantage of those cooler, shadier conditions.
So it's like it creates this little microhabitat, a refuge within the larger ecosystem. That's really cool. And what about water? Those leaves must collect a lot of rainwater.
Oh, absolutely. Those leaves not only provide shade, they also funnel that rainwater down, collecting it in those natural crevices and folds. That creates these little temporary pools of water that can be lifesavers for all sorts of animals, especially when things dry up.
It's incredible how something as simple as the shape of a leaf can make such a huge difference in the availability of water, especially in a drier place like that.
Exactly. And don't forget about the Bismarck's role in the nutrient cycle. Those fallen leaves, plus the fruits they produce, they decompose and enrich the soil, providing food for other plants and organisms.
It's like this one species is at the center of a whole web of life, supporting a really diverse community.
Exactly. The Bismarck palm is a perfect example of how interconnected everything is in nature. It reminds us that even changes that seem insignificant can have, well, ripple effects throughout an entire ecosystem.
And speaking of connections, we were talking earlier about how the Bismarck palm has been used for so many things: construction, basketry, even as food. Are there any other surprising ways that people have used this palm throughout history?
There's one use that always stands out to me, and that's its role in traditional medicine.
No kidding. Now that is fascinating. I'm always amazed by the ways that different cultures have learned to use plants for healing. Tell me more about how the Bismarck palm is incorporated into traditional medicine there in Madagascar.
Well, people use different parts of the Bismarck palm for all sorts of ailments. For instance, they might make a decoction from the roots to treat fevers and stomach aches. The leaves can be used as a poultice to soothe burns or skin irritations.
So it's like a natural first aid kit right there in nature.
In a way, it is. And some even believe that the sap from the Bismarck palm has medicinal uses, like treating coughs and respiratory problems.
That's amazing. It makes you realize the depth of knowledge those traditional healers have about the plants that surround them.
I completely agree. It really emphasizes how crucial it is to preserve that kind of knowledge for future generations. There's still so much we can learn from those traditional practices, both about the incredible healing power of nature and about sustainable ways to live in harmony with the environment.
For sure. You know, when we talk about the Bismarck palm's journey from Madagascar to other parts of the world, I can't help but think about those pictures you sent, the ones with the Bismarck palms all lined up along that driveway.
Ah, yes. Those photos always catch my eye, too.
It's such a simple image, but it really says a lot about how versatile the Bismarck palm is and about its visual impact. It has this air of grandeur and elegance, even in that everyday setting.
You've got a point. The Bismarck palm has this incredible ability to elevate any landscape, whether it's gracing a botanical garden or lining a simple driveway. It commands attention with its stately presence and its unique beauty.
It truly does. It makes you wonder if those who first decided to cultivate this palm outside of Madagascar, if they had any idea just how popular it would become.
It's hard to say, but one thing's for sure, that combination of striking beauty, resilience, and cultural significance. It's a surefire recipe for captivating people, no matter where they are in the world.
And speaking of captivating, I'm curious, as we've dug into all this information on the Bismarck palm, anything else in here catch your eye? What's got you thinking?
You know, as we've been talking about the Bismarck palms, well, its journey across continents, it makes me think about how challenging it must be to transplant something that's so deeply rooted in its natural home. We talked about that quote earlier. To dig a Bismarckia is nearly to kill it. That's pretty powerful imagery.
It really drives home just how crucial it is to plan carefully when you're putting a Bismarck palm in the ground. That taproot system we discussed, it's both its greatest strength and its biggest weakness, wouldn't you say?
Right, that single dominant root, anchoring it deep down in the earth. It's amazing how something that seems so firmly rooted could also be so vulnerable when you try to move it. Think of it this way, the taproot is like a lifeline, you know, drawing up water and nutrients from way down deep, which is especially important in those dry regions where the Bismarck does so well. But relying on that single root also makes it, well, a single point of failure. If that taproot gets seriously damaged when you're transplanting it, the palm's odds of making it just plummet.
It's definitely not a matter of just digging a hole and hoping for the best, is it?
No, not at all. Transplanting a mature Bismarck palm, it's a delicate process. You need real expertise, you have to be very careful with the excavation, and you even have to do some preemptive root pruning to encourage new growth. And even then, even with the best care, Bismarcks often go through what we call transplant shock, basically. They experience a period of really slow growth and recovery as they're trying to get established in their new spot.
Sounds like quite the undertaking. I have a lot of respect for the
Oh, yeah.
people who have figured out how to transplant these giants
Mhm.
successfully. So the key takeaway here is if you're thinking about getting a Bismarck palm, choose the right spot right off the bat.
100%.
Right.
Once that Bismarck is settled in, you don't want to be moving it. And that actually reminds me of another aspect of the Bismarck's growth that I find quite fascinating, its growth habit.
When you say growth habit, you mean the way it, well, develops its shape over time.
Exactly. The Bismarck palm, it's what's called a solitary palm. So unlike some palm species that grow in clusters, sending up multiple shoots from the base, the Bismarck, it stands alone, growing from a single, strong trunk.
It's like the strong, silent type of the palm world.
Right.
Doesn't need any backup.
That's a good way to put it. And as it grows, that trunk stays incredibly straight and upright, almost like a pillar. It really adds to that majestic, almost architectural look they have.
Yeah.
And those big fan-shaped leaves, they emerge from the crown in this beautiful spiral pattern, creating a really symmetrical, rounded canopy.
It's nature's own masterpiece. What happens to those older leaves as it grows?
As the Bismarck gets bigger, it naturally sheds those older, lower leaves, and it leaves behind this smooth gray trunk that's marked with these, well, these fascinating horizontal rings. Those are the scars from where those leaves were once attached.
It's like you're looking at a living history of the palm, a record of its resilience over the years.
It really is. And speaking of resilience, have you noticed those tough little leaf bases that tend to cling to the trunks, especially on the younger Bismarck palms?
Yeah. They make it look like the palm is wearing armor.
Well, they actually do serve a protective purpose, especially for the young ones. They act as a sort of natural shield, protecting the trunk from damage, from things like bad weather, insects, even those wildfires that they have to deal with in their natural habitat.
Like nature's way of giving them some extra padding during those fragile early years. It's really incredible how every little detail of this palm, from that deep taproot to those persistent leaf bases, seems to have a purpose, a story to tell about how it's adapted and survived.
It's a real testament to the power of evolution to shape organisms over millions of years so they can thrive in their environment. The Bismarck palm really exemplifies that delicate balance between form and function.
Absolutely. Well, I have to say, I think we've really uncovered a treasure trove of information about Bismarck palm today. From its sheer size and stunning beauty to its incredible resilience and that fascinating history and cultural significance, it's a species that really captures the imagination.
It has been a pleasure exploring the world of the Bismarck palm with you today. I think it reminds us that the natural world is full of wonders and beauty and, well, even lessons in resilience. We just have to take the time to see them.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the world of the Bismarck palm. Until next time, may you find wonder and inspiration in the world all around you.